Just to clarify to all those at home, this is not a mojito, this is actually just orange juice because my throat kind of gets parched when I talk a lot. So because everyone's been asking me about it, and I have not been ignoring you, this is my review of Legend of Korra Season 3, the finale, changes, and of course the poison of the Red Lotus. I think poison or venom, one of the two of the Red Lotus. The correct title will be in the description. So, to be real with you guys, I cried 3 times during this finale. I cried when Lynn told her sister that she loved her. I was like, I cried. I cried a lot. I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. But the moment I cried, like, buckets. And I mean, it was shameful. It's like, as soon as Jinora took off her hood with her airbending tattoos looking exactly like Aang, I was bawling. And I was really upset. And I think myself, as I was walking, I was pacing up and down my room, like, why am I seriously crying? And I just felt like I was so happy for Aang. Even though he wasn't there, I was happy that his nation is continuing, his nation will be thriving, that the person leading it is his granddaughter, an airbending master, the first female airbending master that we've seen in the entire series, and besides, you know, Avatar Yang Shen. And it was this great moment of just feeling happiness for Jinora, who got a really great culmination of her character's arc from last season and now, and just everything we've known about Aang and him dealing with his loss of family, to have his family reborn in this moment as both tragic because of what happened to Korra, but uplifting because the Air Nation is back and it's new and it's gonna be a force of harmony. It was just such a great moment. And as a fan of Legend of Aang and even enjoying this season a lot, I cried because it meant so much to me. But as for this season is the best season of Legend of Korra, and it's so upsetting because it's like, where was this in the first season? Hell, even the second season, which I think was in a lot of ways an improvement over season 1, it just had very little carryover between the seasons. This was just so well structured. There's still problems with it, which I will get into, but just the development of Asami and Korra in these past episodes, of them being friends, even though Asami still has no real character. I love her, but at the same time, the only characters who have been developed, I think, in the entire series have been Korra, who got great development this season, Lynn, who's had a great character arc except for season 2 where she wasn't there, but in season 1 and 2 had the best story, and Tenzin, and then Jinora. I would say Jinora would be the 4th. But those are the characters that I think that have really grown and changed and developed in this series. As for everyone else, they sort of just are like tropes on a platter. You know, Bolin, his comedy was much better this season than it was the last 2 seasons, but still, besides the cool lava bending and his like ever-rolling relationships, he is still not as good of a character as he could be. Same for Mako, improved from last season, but still not as interesting as he could be. They're starting with Asami, but they still haven't given her something concrete to do. We haven't seen her like have those small interactions between her father. I mean, we haven't seen her with her father in 2 seasons. The last time we saw him, he was trying to kill her. So I wish that the show had the ability to take the time to actually develop its other cast members, because I think if it did, it would be even more amazing than it was this season, but it wasn't. And I think the people who really suffered from that lack of characterization are the villains. Zahir and his cronies, like, his cronies have no personality, and the relationship that they put with him and the female combustion woman, whose name honestly escapes me because I feel like she's that irrelevant to the plot besides her power. Besides their powers, it's like, who were they? Why are they members of this group? I mean, you get with Pali, I think that's her name, you get a little bit about how like she got freedom from Zahir because, you know, he taught her what true freedom was, but what does that even mean? Like, why is these people in this group? What is the real purpose of the Red Lotus? I mean, it's all very interesting but underdeveloped, and I think the fact that they haven't had a really good villain to go from one season to another has really hindered it. I mean, we've always had the Fire Lord in Avatar, and then Zhao was a small villain. Then we introduced Azula, and Azula was a major force of conflict and antagonism, both on a narrative level and a character level for Zuko personally. So I feel like Korra lacks that. I mean, Zahir is alive at the end of this season, so hopefully that means be brought in to be some sort of conflicting force in the next season. But really, I just want them to have sort of like more consequences for things, because even from this season to season 2 with the spirit world issue, that was not the main focus of this season, because even the spirit world being reopened allowed the Air Nation to continue, which I think makes a lot of sense, and probably, you know, that would be the natural way because it would create a natural spiritual balance. It still is very muddled, so I guess I would like to know what's going to happen there. In terms of overall, like, I thought Korra, this was her best season yet. I mean, the way she's willing to sacrifice, she's much smarter, she's much more assured. I do wish that since she's always had these political villains, I wish they would show more of that confliction within Korra, because it always seems to end up, as complex as the antagonist will be, it all seems very black and white for Korra. I mean, I really wish that they would try to develop what these chaos political villains mean in conscious, because like Korra even says that there's a point to it, but at the same time, Korra is the daughter of a chieftain. She's an avatar. She comes with inherent power and privilege from those positions. You know, her having these villains who are voting, I know they go to the extreme, which is chaos, which is very annoying, because it's like they all have a point. Like, what do these kings and queens and tribe chieftains actually need to have this position for? Do we really need them anymore? Can they even be trusted, considering that, you know, Unalaq was the chief of the Northern Water tribe, and he created a whole civil war for his own means. You know, the Earth Queen who we saw in this season was corrupt. Just because there are a few good ones, and we can only name 2 because there is no real leader in the air nomads, and we know that Korra's father is good, so we know it's not him. And then we know Zuko and his daughter are probably good, but like Zuko's grandfather and his great-grandfather and his father, they were all terrible. So there is a real reason for that, but that conflict is never really shown. The internal discussions are always very lacking in Korra, and I think it's because they want to do these really complex storylines and have these really complex villains, but because they're a certain type of show, they don't want to get too far into it, but it just leads to being more frustrating, because it's like, if Korra represents all these things that these group are against, yeah, they make great antagonists, but what if Korra's not always on the right side? And that's not really there, but I feel it's always an underlying issue, because in every conflict that Korra's been in, she's been of the privileged group, or been the person who would benefit most from keeping the social norm. And so what is it going to be shown that that might not be ideal, that maybe the avatar role has to change, not to be what she is now, but to be something different, and maybe the avatar is becoming more obsolete. Why do we need to have this position in the same way? These are questions that come in with Korra as they introduce these villains to challenge Korra and her role of the avatar, but it never seems to have any long-lasting effect because everyone's okay with this overall. So it's like, where are we going to get people that are not just, you know, these off-handed groups? And there's a helicopter for some reason, I don't know. When are we going to get regular people, not just these offhand groups, talking about these things, and these are things that people obviously feel because they can find supporters to help them? So that's how I feel overall about that. But Korra herself, she was so great, and seeing her at the end, you know, really upset and depressed and sad because of her her being in this position. I think it was such a great change from the ending of season 1, and I think they're very similar. But I feel in season 1, you know, we were also disappointed that it just ended with such an easy fix. But with this, you know, Korra still the avatar, still has her powers, but she's like crippled. She's in this wheelchair. She can't even do her own hair. She's trying to be strong for Jinora, but you can tell that for someone like Korra, who's always been active and doing her own thing, that this is going to be a hard thing for her. And I hope they don't fix it automatically in season 4. And I said season 4 is going to be the last season. I hope it starts her on this different kind of journey. Not just because it'd be great to have another disabled character seen in a positive way on the show, but because, you know, Korra and her role as the avatar and herself are so interlinked and have always been so interlinked that it would be great for her to be challenged to see, like, what is her worth without being the avatar, or not having the full capabilities of an avatar, and starting her own new chain of existence. But she was great in this episode. I mean, this episode and this season, she's really been showing herself to be a leader. Her combination with Asami, since they both are, like, you know, Asami's more logical and pragmatic and Korra's more of the fighter, you see them work really well together, and I enjoyed them as a unit, and I think that's why their interaction works so well together. As for everyone else, like I said, like Tenzin, his arc with the air nomads was really great. It's such an emotionally resonant storyline because it's something that we've been dealing with since before, you know, since before with Aang and everything. So I enjoyed seeing Tenzin and his struggle to create this new nation. But I think that the biggest standout of character arc storylines for me personally was Lin and her sister Sue, because at the end where they had finally come together and they loved each other and they were working together, that to me was beautiful. Like, I thought it was just like an amazing culmination of everything that we've seen them go through developing, because you can tell it was so hard for Lin to get to that point. So I loved it. I loved that story arc. I think the best of any of the arcs that we've had thus far. I think that it was great, and I love that I feel like the characters getting the best development seem to be all the dead ones, because I feel like last season with the air babies and this season with, you know, Toph and her kids, we get to see how really shitty they were as parents. And I never thought Katara would be a bad parent. I know in the past I had disliked Katara, but in recent years, having rewatched the series and having seen it in a different way, I honestly really enjoy Katara, although I realize that my problem with her power level is not a Katara problem, it's just going to be an Avatar problem, because apparently you become an Air Master at 12 no matter what, even if you're not a prodigy. So we'll see. But I just feel like, you know, that Katara and Aang allowed this sort of like division in their family by one of their children being an airbender and the other one's not. The fact that Toph, you know, committed a crime to help save one of her kids who was being reckless and like let the other child, you know, feel totally neglected for it. That in their 50s, these women were still, you know, hadn't seen each other. That Lin hated her own, not hated, but she was against seeing her own niece because of it. And, you know, that they really messed up their kids. I really want to know how Sokka and Suki's kids, because I'm assuming they're together, how they turned out. And, you know, Zuko's daughter, I want to know more about them. And I feel like them bringing in Zuko, I was like, this is great, but why are you here? You know, Zuko was there, but there was no point to him being here. His role could have been done by any random messenger. It really wasn't so serious that it needed to be. And I would love to have seen Zuko's daughter. I love how he's like, I gotta go back to protect my daughter. I'm like, you're like 80. Don't you think that your daughter could be like okay by herself? Like, I guess you have a dragon now, so that helps. Not to say that he's old, he can't do anything, but it seemed very bland to have him in the plot than out of the plot. You know, just keep him out if he's not going to be of any use. Unless you're going to have a Zutara reunion, then I'm like, then not do it. But yeah, but then the one thing I was disappointed by was like when Korra brought up Iroh. And I was like, oh, I wish we could have gotten a small Iroh Zuko scene. I would have cried probably. But yeah, I feel like the integration of the gang works best when you're dealing with the children, not the actual original members. Because like Katara is so neutered, Zuko is so neutered. There is no point to having them there in that capacity. Just have the kids be there, because the kids bring even more development to them. And I think having them there, because I feel like Katara hasn't improved anything, but seeing how her children act show enough of how she was as a parent, because obviously like her kids, her grandchildren, they all love her, but she has some failings too. Same with Toph and her children. I think like that's how we best learn about these characters, you know. Like, so just have their children and their grandchildren in the show. Don't need to have them there directly. But yeah, Toph's grandkid, like, can you believe it? She's an airbender. I wonder how she would feel about that. But yeah, so this was a really good season. It had just really great stakes. It was consistent. It was very streamlined in terms of plot. Even Mako and Belin's side story of them finding their family I thought was sweet. I thought it worked well considering they were finally going there. It made sense to find out where it was. I thought it was very emotionally resonant for both of those characters, even though I don't think that they get the best character development, period. The stuff with the Earth Queen was great. I think that when we saw Zahir kill the Earth Queen, because I think it's very clear that she's dead, with the asphyxiation, that's such a really terrifying way to die, and seeing him be able to do that and then fly, you know, something we haven't even seen Aang do, that was just really, really interesting. And I think that kind of dark airbending was interesting, because I think we've always seen airbending as like a positive, very spiritual element, but there's also a darkness to it because it's so powerful. And when Jinora was like, there haven't been this many airbenders in like so long, I'm just like, that's so true. Like, and when you saw the air temple having melted away and Tenzin's looking at it, you can feel that in you, because you know what that means, what that loss means to the culture and to the air nomads who are just getting back. And it's very emotional for me because of all that stuff, how it ties in. But I am very happy with what they have. I think that now that Nickelodeon no longer is going to be showing, it's going to be online now. Hopefully they can do some different things. I mean, I would love Korra or just to have a LGBT relationship in the show, period, because I feel like now they could have the means for it. It's already been going this more adult way, and I think cartoons are slowly going towards a point where we can have them. You know, DreamWorks had one, Paranorman had one. Let's just kind of like, I think if any show could do it, it could be Avatar. I believe that Avatar could be that show. Legend of Korra. That's what I mean by Avatar. You know what I mean? So I enjoyed this season. I still think they could really work on developing their characters. Like I said, only a few of them are really developed. The villains have been lacking. I mean, Zahir's motivation is interesting, but not because of Zahir. It's interesting because it's an interesting concept. It's a great foil for the Avatar, but he himself, his lackeys, not interesting. The relationships between them are not really well done. You don't know why they are a group. I mean, they had a little hint about Lava Guy and Mingya having an attraction to each other, but like, they don't care about each other dying, really. When Plea dies, like, there's a mention about her. It like helps Zahir be able to, you know, fly. I did like when she's mentioned that it's when he actually goes down, like he's grounded by that one mention of her for a moment. But beyond that, they're bland. Bringing in Zuko, that was a waste of time. So I want consequences. I want more growth for these characters, because like it's sad that they've been so lacking. And this is the ones I feel like this is Earth. Like, you know how there was, you know, water, earth, and then fire. I feel like this is Earth, and I feel like season 1 is almost like irrelevant besides Amon, because I liked Amon as a villain. I thought he was really great, but beyond that, he's kind of pointless. But I feel like book 2 was kind of like water. It had its moments, it had good mythology moments, but overall it was kind of the slower introduction season. This is Earth. The way this ended was that same kind of emotional feeling. So I hope that next season, the final season, will be like fire. It'll set everything, it will be a great setup, we'll get to see more stuff going on, characters will be developed. Let's just move forward from this. I think this was a really well written, well connected season, even though it had some flaws. So I'm hoping for it. But yeah, I can't believe I cried when Jinora got anointed, but I just felt it was such a great feeling, because I feel like Aang's story arc is, while it's fictional, it's also so real in a lot of ways, that to see the Air Notion rise again, that I was crying, and I just felt so sad for Korra. I think this was the first season I was actually really invested in Korra as a character. I really was like, if something happens to her, I'm gonna be super upset. And her relationship with her father, and I love how she was like, even when she was tied up, she was beating people's ass. I'm like, yes girl, get it. I was so I loved her. I finally loved Korra, and I'm so happy for that. And even though I would say that sticking around hasn't been the best, because I still think like after 3, this shouldn't have been their best season after having 3 seasons, but I would definitely recommend, if people were trying to get into it again, just watch 2 and 3, because season 1 is almost irrelevant at that point. There's nothing good came from that. So let's just go with 2 and 3, and I think that's really all you need. It's the better of the seasons as a whole. But this one, like, if I were going to go back and rewatch the series, I would just watch 3. I don't even think I would bother with 2 besides the Avatar Wong episodes. So looking forward to season 4. The first season I've been looking forward to since this show actually began. So hopefully they can build upon what they've already done, because they have a really good foundation for it. So here's hoping.